Hello and welcome to another episode of Disney Movie Investigation. If this is your first time watching, welcome to the show. In each episode, we take a look at a movie that is featured on Disney+. On this episode, we are going deep under the sea as we take a look at 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And stay tuned to our bonus story this week as we take a look at the 2,000 Leagues Under the Sea Submarine Voyage that was a former attraction in Disneyland. And if you are enjoying these episodes, I do ask that you please hit that subscribe button. That way you'll be notified with each new episode. Now, sit back and enjoy this episode of Disney Movie Investigation. So like I said, today we're covering 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This movie was released on December 23rd, 1954. It was directed by Richard Fleischer. It is based on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. The production companies were Walt Disney Studios, and the distribution company was Buena Vista Distribution. The budget for this movie was $5 million, and it did a box office return of $28.2 million. But let's take a look at the production history. So Walt Disney had expressed interest in making a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea movie after seeing marine footage of one of his true life adventure series. At the time, however, the film rights were owned by MGM and King Bauer Productions. In December of 1951, it was announced that Walt Disney had acquired the film rights to the production and was planning to use the marine footage from the True Life Adventure series as inspiration for the film. The film was shot in locations across Jamaica and the Bahamas, and some of the filming requirements actually required to have a crew of over 400 people. The famous giant squid attack was actually shot twice, as the first time it was shot at dusk and a very calm sea. The second time it was shot, it was at twilight with a big thunderstorm, so it would be more dramatic and it would be better at hiding some of the special effect cables. And at this time, this was the most expensive production for a movie and definitely the most ambitious. So in terms of the cast, we have Kirk Douglas, who plays Ned Land, James Mason, who plays Captain Nemo, Paul Lucas, who plays Professor Pierre Aronnax, Peter Lorre, who plays Counsel, Robert J. Wilk, who plays Nautilus First Mate, and Ted DeCorsa, who plays Captain Farragut. In terms of the plot, in 1868, a monster is terrorizing the sea and sinking ships. Three unlikely companions board a warship in search of the beast, only to find out the hard way it is an engine of destruction, a submarine boat. The trio is captured by the vessel's commander, Captain Nemo, and it is now accompanying him on a journey of adventure and discovery as the Nautilus and their occupants travel 20,000 leagues under the sea. In terms of the legacy of this movie, so instead of releasing a soundtrack, Disney decided to release 2 studio cast recording record albums, and the albums would consist of a condensed version of the story narrated by the character Ned Land. The albums, in addition, the song A Whale of a Tale was also released by the Decca Children's label. And finally, in 2008, we would get a fully released soundtrack, and it composed of 26 tracks of Paul Smith's score along with songs from the movie. The film would actually be nominated for, or would win 2 Academy Awards, one for art direction and special effects. And then in February of 1955, a comic book adaptation of the film would be released. So would I recommend this movie? This movie is a classic Disney movie. It is one of when Disney was trying to separate himself from animation and going into live action. This was almost one of the pinnacle right before Mary Poppins. So I think this movie is really good, especially if you're into movie history, because it definitely shows kind of how the development of special effects as well as adventure movies that were popular during the 1950s. So definitely recommend this one. It is worth it, and the story is really engaging. I really like the performance of Kirk Douglas and Peter Lorre. They do really well to capture you on that adventure, as well as James Mason as Captain Nemo. He's the villain, but he's not a true mustaching, twirling villain, so definitely worth watching his performance as well. So as we move into our bonus story, we're going to take a look at the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the Submarine Voyage. And this was an attraction in Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom in the Fantasyland section of the park. And it was inspired by the Disneyland version as well. The ride was a 20-minute submarine ride that would allow guests to ride through the lagoon with sea animals and mermaids. The ride vehicles were constructed by Morgan's Yachts in Clearwater, Florida, and the final touches being completed by the Tampa Bay Ship Company. They were actually not submarines, sorry to ruin any illusions, but they were boats where the guests would sit below sea level. The interiors were a mixture of metal paneling along with Victorian-style fittings for passenger seats. Each guest would have their own seat and their own porthole for guests to see out. Above each porthole would be a small speaker so they could hear Captain Nemo's voice, who at that time was voiced by Peter Renede. The diving effect was created by a bubble machines located throughout the attraction and cast members operating the vehicle through a porthole at the top. So this was a very popular attraction for Disney World. It was one of the e-ticket attractions at the time. So why did it close? The ride, like I said, was very popular and always a guest favorite. However, it was expensive to maintain, along with it had a very slow and low hourly capacity for getting guests through to the attraction. The ride would close on September 5th, 1994 without notice, but there was a sign saying that it was closed for temporary maintenance. It was slated to reopen in the summer of '96, but in April it was determined that it would be closed permanently. When the ride was closed, the vehicles could be seen on the dock for a short time before they were placed permanently backstage in locations around Disney World. They would eventually be stripped and buried in a landfill in 2004. 2 vehicles, however, would be saved, and they would be placed at the bottom of the snorkeling lagoon in Castaway Cay. The lagoon of the ride itself, the Submarine Voyage, was a scenic viewpoint, and it was renamed Ariel's Grotto with a King Triton statue added. In 2004, the water was drained and the sets were demolished, and then Pooh's Playful Spot was constructed. And if you want to know where it is currently, it's currently in the place where Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is. That's where the lagoon was. So there are several tributes to the ride, as one can be found in the rockwork of the Little Mermaid's Ariel's Undersea Adventure. And at Trader Sam's, one of the cocktails is called the Nautilus, which comes in a drinking vessel that's shaped in a submarine. So thank you so much for joining us here on another episode of Disney Movie Investigation. I would love for anyone to please leave a comment below on what they think of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And I unfortunately have never ridden the Submarine Voyage, but if someone had ridden the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea Submarine Voyage, I would love for you to leave a comment of one of your favorite memories of the ride. So as we look forward to our next episode, we're going to take a look at a modern double feature as we take a look at Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2. So until next time, I hope you have a magical day, and we will see you real soon.